Perfect. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. Caught me off guard right there. I was waiting to come to the show, just trying to collect my thoughts of how this week is turning out to be. Possibly step two, bringing us in further into this reset. So, step one was COVID, obviously. Now there's a possibility that EBT, SNAP benefits, the food assistance program, are not going to be paying out. So many places have already gone into emergency authorization to try to get funding in the millions of dollars for all the residents in a state to help them through food banks get the food they would have off of the EBT and SNAP system. People are getting really outraged that they're having their ease of accessing food cut off, let's say. A lot of things are expected if this doesn't work itself out. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying if it doesn't happen, it's a imminent thing tomorrow evening at midnight. It will or will not happen. So as we roll into November 1st, if those funds are not turned back on, you are going to watch a lot of people. It's turned into, it'll be a hungry, I can't feed my kids political movement. Is what that'll turn into. It's already snowballing. It's going to be difficult to undo the yarn, you know. It's already kind of rolled it in its momentum of everybody organizing. And, the Revolutionary War was fought with 3% of people against the British. 3. This is about 10% of all Americans are on some sort of assistance for food. Now think about that. Just even let that sink in for a second. Like we started color revolution after color revolution across the world. Playbook is pretty much copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, and we are seeing it right here, right now. So as we move through, if the chaos is allowed to continue, I'm just saying, if it is, by Monday, this country will be rather unrecognizable to a point. And that's when you know that step two has really, or part two has begun into this 3-part series of the end ends up in the reset completely. Digital ID'd all the way down. That will be at the end. No more cash, universal basic income, stable coins, whatever you like to term that as. UBI. It's going to be coming in. That no more cash, everything's digital. We need to go from here to there, and the only way to accomplish that is what we're seeing now with this kind of projected violence and rioting, etc. would bring us to that point. And you have to ask yourself, are we in the uniparty and this is all just one giant stage play? Because they always call it theater for a reason, do they not? Because see, remember when they took us into COVID, how there was all those excuses needed, and it was so new for everybody. It was like, what? Our whole world just changed, and it was really like, what? This one, a lot of people have seen a lot of change so quickly that this one's going to be a little more difficult to pull off with the speed and the mind affecting effectiveness of it. I guess it doesn't make sense, but it's the effectiveness of the way your mind will be bent, and that shock and awe campaign moving forward with this one too. So you can already see where the roadmap leads you to over there. The whole digital ID, track trace, no more cash, everything's digital, that whole thing. You're not going to be able to live in certain areas. Well, maybe not. Everything's going to be on the blockchain. You won't own your house. Everything's going to be digitized onto a ledger that's then sold off as a financial product, depending on who holds that bundled loan package from any other of the large 4 or 5 banks. All digitized. Dollar number assigned to it, your mortgage, your car, anything of value, your 4-wheeler, your boat, your camper, your log cabin, anything that you got financed, that's all going to be digitized with the value put. That's where that leads to. Now, after that's accomplished, to live in that system, you are going to have to be the saint. Because if you step out of bounds even one little iota, because you can see where they took it to in China already, but we're going where China is now. Between then and now, something gargantuan needs to happen. So do you think this would be it? Like using the EBT system, turning that off to create agitation, knowing that law-abiding citizens would also be in those stores going, hey, enough's enough. and also removing that segment of the population that would be resistant against any type of COVID 2.0 type of thing would be taken out, and the thugs would be taken out. So these two segments, which would be thorns in the side anyway, have been removed in advance. It's not a roundup. So think about that as we get in here. Ransom, thanks you for looking at the. We should look through some of those videos tonight and just scroll down until we laugh in these like ridiculousness, And happy Halloween, everybody. Not quite yet, but remember, like in places, other cities, this is the night where they go out and burn everything. So
yeah, they're ready for it. Let me show you
totally,
something.
Man.
Is
this the beginning of chapter 2? Is this the next step? The beginning of the step is the question.
What the hell is going on?
What do you got for me? You're going to add some media in? And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Civilization Cycle podcast and live radio show every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight, broadcasting across wherever you're listening to on the venues, and Rumble as our seed point. Ransom?
Yeah, so, this could go a couple of ways. I don't think it's going to go, super crazy, because it'll play right into one basically one side of what is. Sorry, I got a computer glitch over here. All right. No, they pumped this up. This is like a weapon, basically, by the Democrats to push this civil unrest idea, but it's really, I don't think it's going to work. Even the far left governments, like where I live, has already been preparing for this. So what you're looking at is a post that somebody posted, and it's funny because I noticed them, but I don't go in town that much. So I was like, well, that's weird. They probably did that because of the weirdos out there wearing costumes before Halloween on their No Kings protest. There was like 15 guys or women, men or women, whatever. Them were out there in costumes. They and them were out there in their costumes. I don't think the majority of people driving by even knew what the hell they were doing. They probably saw it later on the news. Oh, it's a No Kings protest. But in anticipation for that, our town put up a bunch of facial recognition live CCTV cameras feeds back to the police station that have facial recognition and license plate readers all on it. Kind of like those ones I showed you that were on the highway for the Border Patrol. They put those all over town here. So here's like a little map of that right here. And
Ransom, at the end, can we slow it down and see if you can get around this? Can you make a route through town to escape and evade all of those?
No.
Really?
No, absolutely not. That's kind of what the guy was talking about. We can't even get into town, in and out of town without being tracked. And they're all over the place.
Places if you come through the desert there.
Yeah, on foot. You're not going to drive in or out without going through one of these cameras. And not only that, they set them up, guess where? They set them up at all the food distribution and shopping centers. So all of the little grocery stores and shopping centers. So like this cluster over here would be like Home Depot and all of that stuff. They got one on each intersection of major highway, state highway, and international highway, or interstate. It's not an international highway. I meant like federal highways. And then here is all the food distribution centers. You got Walmart. You got the other chains of grocery stores, and these ones that you see far out here, that'd be the Border Patrol station that already has one going either way on the highway. But then they added these other ones along where the Air Force base is, and then getting over here, this is a dollar store, this is a Dollar General, and here's little areas where you eat. So we went to go ahead and say
what are the purpose of these cameras again there, Ransom? Like what information are they collecting, those cameras?
They are live CCTV robots that have an intercom directly to the police station, and on the little solar panel box that, it's like a trailer. They just pull it out and park it there, and it has a facial recognition software camera on it, and it has license plate readers. And we went shopping at one of the shopping centers that had one out in the parking lot, because there's a store there that stays open till 2 a.m. to get all your smoking needs around here. So, but anyway, we pulled into that, and a little robot goes, "Warning, you are trespassing. Your face is being recorded. You are being reported, blah, blah, blah." I forgot what the little robot message said, but here's a map of the United States, and you can tell that, well, just about every Democrat run major city across the United States has set up a bunch of these in their cities. So this is like the and this is only one company. This is Motorola also has one of the same companies here. And the other one is Flock Safety right
Yeah,
here.
I've heard of them before. They're putting out really hundreds of thousands. I think it was 400,000 cameras the last time I checked. And it's
Right.
all
And
it's that same thing. It's license plate readers that are, they say it's anonymized data, but they're not tracking phones. They're only getting license plates. Yeah, sure.
well, I
And
looked
Flock
on the
Safety is, positioning themselves as you got to have a flock system. It's the only way to go. Eventually, there's going to be millions, like Elon Musk's satellites. Think of that. Then the deployment of these flock safety cameras and license plate readers is like deploying Elon Musk's small disposable satellites.
well, it gets even better.
Yeah, it's at that level.
It gets even better because the
I
ones
can see
that,
happy
that
Thursday night, everybody gets better.
the ones that I found on the internet, most of them that they're talking about, like where you could go on the internet and go to a website and read about it and look at it, they show the one that just has the license plate reader. The ones that they set up here have about 5 different cameras. They're not unlike the one I showed you at the border check highway that, reads your license plate, facial recognition, all of that stuff. But not only that, it has a Wi-Fi connection to connect to the businesses to use their CCT camera TV, their feeds as well. So if any crime happens, you have the police trailer rebroadcasting the surveillance video from the stores. So if anything happens immediately, the whole network is told about it. And they're talking about here, this is for our safety. Don't worry about it. It's a citywide safety network that they just installed right before the No Kings protest. That it fizzled. It didn't really happen. And I was thinking about it. That doesn't make no sense, because they knew that the little protest would only be on one street. That's the kind of the main street that goes to our town. They go there to protest, so everybody has to, drive by them and see them. So I thought, well, why are they putting it up everywhere? Why is it in the Walmart parking lot? It was because of this EBT thing. So here in the state of New Mexico, where the average of the EBT recipient is at 21%, unlike the national 12.5%. So it's 12.5 nationwide are the amount of people that are on food assistance SNAP programs. But here in New Mexico, being, the most dangerous state, the last in education, the last in everything that's good, and the first in everything that's bad, we here just came
Merry
up
Christmas.
with, right. We here are at 21 point something percent of the population is on snaps. So the governor found an extra $30 million of federal money that wasn't getting used. And she's going to become the state savior by providing SNAP benefits for people for like a week, like the first week. So people get it on the 1st, they get it on the 15th, depending on where you live or how they have it set up. There's usually 2 dates per month that some people, like half of the people, get it on this date and the other half get it on the other date. So you're not going to see everybody freak out all at once across the nation. Half of them will. But that's okay, because they've been preparing for this and we've been talking about it for years. The major corporations did the strike one with COVID so that they could cut hours and cut employees. So they went back to a 12-hour business cycle. Now is going to go into what we talked about before, that we kind of called food distribution centers in these food deserts. So they're going to let a little bit of crime play out. And I'm sure you saw all of crazy videos of people saying they're just going to go in and take what they want. They're going to eat their Thanksgiving. They're going to have their collard greens or whatever. They will. And they'll also get
cartoons, no less.
Right. They're going to get facially recognized.
Yes.
And like I said about the 2020 Summer of Love, and I even made a joke in a video. It might have been why that video got banned off of YouTube, but it was just a music video. And I was showing the facial recognition cameras getting all of the BLM people, and saying, yeah, well, they're all in the system now. So don't kid yourself. The government knows who all of those people were out there causing trouble, burning stuff, tearing stuff down. They all got marked. They're all on CCT cameras and people's feeds from like TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all of that. Pictures were flying everywhere. Nothing is private on the internet. Facial recognition algorithms are running through all kinds of things you wouldn't think they would be. So they know who all those people are, and they're going to know who all of these people are, and they're going to let them steal at first, depending on where they live. In some places, they're going to crack down like you've never seen before. So it works both ways for either side of the aisle. If the lefty or kind of use it to say, look, they're trying not to feed you, they want to starve you out, and all of the other kind of weird BS theories are out there. But the other side wants to increase the amount of law enforcement nationwide, not unlike what happened in COVID in other countries, just for different reasons, right? So we're doing it for different reasons, but like me and you have talked about, they never reseed a program. It never goes away once installed. They're going to use it. So
wait, now before you go on there, so think about the roundup that would occur of the people. So this is going to be in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, after this plays out. So your choice will be the national workforce, which will be formed after this event, or you can join the military and be shipped off overseas. And there you go with the trackers, right? So imagine if that's part of the purpose also. In addition, those of you who are law-abiding citizens, I know you want to stop these people from like taking grocery store carts out of Walmart, but they are a billion-dollar company that is insured and slippage and everything in between. It is not your job to stop them from going out. I know you want to and be like, no more stealing in here, but really it's a corporate entity. They want that too, to see who is going to respond and stand up against a threat. I think that's a double tracking system that's going to be done during this time, because like I said, if you're willing to stand up now and stop thieves from robbing your supermarkets and your country markets and all the stuff around your homes and cities, if you're willing to stand up now and do that, you're willing to stand up against the plan as it moves forward. See, that's a dangerous segment of society at this time if there's a pushback. But, if you're out walking into the parking lot and somebody accosts you coming up to your car, that's a completely different thing. Completely different. At that point, yeah, you should already have like rehearsed a few times in your mind what's going to happen, right? It's not like what's that? You should already have that scenario and run out, and you already made the choice in your mind right now what you're going to do before you even do it. So it's like a habit. When you get there, you don't even think twice.
Right. I saw one video where a lady was talking about,
you're going to have to defend yourself. That's very different than trying to stop somebody going out of the cart of groceries. You know what I mean? You're going to get
right.
But a lot of people will want to do that. That's what I'm saying. You're to track both segments, the thugs and the law-abiding citizens who resist, right? That's what this is about, to catalog all them.
Well, like I said, it gets better. So I saw one video where a woman was talking about, what are you going to do when I come up in your house and take all your food out your cabinets, and I take your grandma's milk and get up in the deep freezer and all of that. And I was thinking, well, not just me, but probably anybody out there will turn you into a donut real quick.
Yeah.
So
I'll agree.
But on the other
donut.
yeah, right. The other point I was making is that they're setting this up to mark all the people, but more than that, this is going to be the first in a series of events where the corporations have an excuse to shut the doors. So all automated inside.
Say that again with me. Permanently.
Right. So we've talked about this before. It'll be like food distribution centers, more like. Yeah. So you got used to ordering online, and you pull around to the side in those little parking lots waiting they come out and bring your food. Well, now because they're worried people are going to haul out a bunch of their products, and they're not really worried about it. Like you said, it's all insured and paid for, but it is an excuse to go to an all robotic system. So the food distribution center will be a place that you just pull up and then you get your groceries. Then you're on your own in the parking lot as far as, what happens after that. But you won't get to go shop in the store. And we've already seen this trend going by companies locking all of their products behind plexiglass with little locks. And then it moved to just straight up tarps with pictures of it. Like we're in North Korea, you just get pictures of food and there's no food there and you get to order. So now it's going to be order online before you get there. And when you get there, you're just going to get what they give you. They're going to give you replacements. They're probably not going to give you a refund for the difference in price. Say like you ordered organic sour cream and you get Daisy sour cream. It costs like 50 cents less. They're not going to reimburse you for that. They're just going to fill your cart and you're going to go on your way and you'll be happy to get what you can get because it's closed. and it'll take a long time to go back and get in the line. They already have super long food lines waiting behind like only 2 or 3 robots that are open with one cashier, and then they have like 10 robots not being used. Well, they put those in there for a reason. That's how they're going to get people used to going through it. And then eventually you're just going to pull up to the curb, scan it, pay for it, probably use your digital ID to get it. So they know that it's going to the right people, of course. What's been ordered online. But that's what we've been talking about for a long time. What would they use? And of course, when people go there and they get mad and they want to go in the store, well, then that means you're going to have armed security at places, right? So this is just an excuse. Either way, if you go super far left or super far right, you're going to end up back around at the same place of totalitarianism and a transhuman system that's completely digitally tracked and traced everything you do. This is what this is about.
Yeah, but
But
what's the end
on
of it?
the
What's the
on
end
the
goal? I can't get the end goal. Okay, let's say it comes to fruition and it does, and we're completely at the apex. They can't take it anymore. Got damn chips in your brain, got augmentation everywhere. Everything's that you're living through a digital matrix screen. Okay, and then what?
well, whatever they got planned for you, which is probably just a small amount of people really enjoying life. And it ain't you. It's not us. It's not the masses. That's their plan. They're even, going out of their way to rebuild the Georgia Guidestone, which makes me think that it wasn't some kind of secret Illuminati attack on the thing. It was literally some guy that didn't like it. He didn't like the idea of it, so he went and blew it up. And they didn't want to tell people because if that guy became a hero, if they
Which
caught
he would
him,
have. He would have.
right, and caught him and put his face all over the place, then people would start doing more things like that. So they didn't want that. Instead, they're probably just going to build another one that's more in your face, less out in the middle of Georgia or somewhere, but like downtown New York City, which is about to go crazy communist right now.
Think they
And
would do that? Because I went out to Elberton where that thing is, and it's hella in the middle of nowhere. You really need to, like, you're going down I-75, and then you need to turn left or go east as you're going down toward Atlanta, and you drive like a good two and a half, and I mean through just hundreds of thousands of chicken like farms as far as you can see, man, with chicken farms and raising out there like soybeans and stuff. It is just in the middle of nowhere. You turn and you come down, and where is it? It's in the middle of a cornfield, basically.
right. Well, they weren't
Like
ready for
it's
people to
on a
look at it.
knoll by itself. Like you can see it from like if you knew what you were looking for before, when you turn in off the stoplight and you go down this hill and you come back up again, you could have seen it directly from across there if you know what you're looking for. It's just literally in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the fields.
Right.
There's no pomp or anything. Even when we got there, my mom was like, "This is it." Because I was going down to the airport and we're like, "Oh, let's stop over at the Etowah Indian Mound and go see the Georgia Guidestones. 2 birds, 1 stone," right? She was shocked that there was nothing there. She's like, "This is it? I thought it was supposed to be this monument and things like Greece kind of thing."
Right. No, it was just a little
No, it was
message.
just that thing just plunked right there. Nothing else.
This little message written in all of the all of the languages with the little solar and lunar calendar on it, so it could kind of keep date and time for the plebeians that come back out of the ashes there. That's what it was meant for. You weren't meant to think about it or look at it yet. They weren't ready for it. But now they
You
are.
think the numbers will stay the same though? They're declining down to 500,000. Do you think that'll stay the same, or do you think it'll decrease down to 200,000 because these are smarter than we thought?
No, I think they want 500,000 for a specific reason. And I don't think that counts the elite. That's the plebeians. So they have their own number of people, that they don't even want you to think about. But this whole idea, and even if it doesn't get that crazy fast, it's just one of many incremental things that are going to lead us to the same place. It might not happen this time. What I expect this time is for some kind of emergency fix in, late November, to let everybody stress about it for a couple of weeks, which will prove that on one hand that leftist governors don't have control of their areas, which give further excuse to put more troops on the streets, which by the way they're planning. But in the wider scope, the wider vision of this, we're having global conflict. I mean, it's getting right there. Even with Trump visiting Xi Jinping over there and supposedly having a good deal, everybody's arming up. Everybody's increasing nuclear. Like we had nuclear. I know that bothered some people. Nuclear.
You Northeast accent. You take that out of here. You hear?
Yeah, but they're all arming up. They're all getting ready for a worldwide food shortage. I don't know what's going to cause it,
Oh,
but
you think so?
they
Shit.
seem to think that it's happening, and they're moving towards that right now. And all the countries are just. It's like I've said many times, it's like the world leaders have cabin fever, and they got in power, and they realize, hey, well, I want to do some of the stuff that Grandpa was doing in power, like conquer nations and get my name known in history forever. They none of them could do that if we're all in peace. So of course we have to have peace fires where we say we're having ceasefires, but yet the wars continue on behind the scenes. They just stop
Yeah, they do.
talking about it for a little while, and then they'll come back on TV and start talking about it again when they run out of stories that they're pumping here, like the food stamp crisis affecting 12%. So even imagine if 12% or 12.5% of the population is having food problems. We kind of know that we could solve that in about 2 years if the government would move out of the way and allow charities, churches, and promote the ideas of victory gardens and things like that, self-sustainability. But that's not the plan. They want people powerless, scared, and hungry. And that way you can kind of get them to agree with anything that you're going to put on them. And part of that is everybody getting used to not having a job. See, because that's the big transition that
Yeah.
everybody's going to have to face. Not only are people not going to want to keep paying these welfare programs, but there's going to be a lot more and more people that feel like they're desperate and they need that kind of safety net because there's going to be less and less in jobs. Every week I look, thousands of jobs are being taken off from different companies and areas, like that we really don't need is the truth. Some of those
Well,
things we just don't
Ransom,
need.
the AI is moving into the cubicle, and it's going to
Yes.
keep this rate. It's 100,000 people were laid off this week alone. 100,000. Now, it's not just at one company. It's a conglomeration of different companies, including Amazon was one of those. There's a few others too that I cannot remember, but there's also a huge shakeup going on at YouTube in terms of YouTube splitting off into 3 different divisions in itself. That's why you creators out there, including myself, if everything seems completely wonky and your reach isn't there and just everything's completely off, is because the entire algorithm is bent because they're splitting into 3 different, divisions of that. So everywhere you look, it doesn't matter. Everything is being restructured right now. Everything is being restructured. And I wanted to jump over to buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Thank you for supporting us over there with a espresso. Alison Bavej, well done, Ransom. You carried the show well. Oh, that was from last week. Yeah, I'd missed a week back there. Let me get a little higher up here on the screen. Let me share this as a matter of fact, if I could, Ransom. I want to pop the comments up here for a screen share. If I can find it again. Screen share, where are we? There we go. Forgive the I need to get that. I need to get the splitter so I can just click it with a button. Taco Banana right there at the bottom. What do you guys think of Glint? They hold your gold in a secure private vault and then issue a MasterCard to make purchases. It scrapes off the amount of gold you can use in real time as you spend the gold in real time. Andy Schechtman has a partnership with them. Taco Banana, thank you so much for that. And someone who also bought us 3 double espressos, appreciate that. It'll keep us going through the night. Now, Ransom, let me respond first, then I'd like to get what you're thinking too. What they're trying to do is fractionalize the same thing. They're digitizing the asset. So if they have a kilogram of gold, they can buy treasury bonds and issue a stable coin for the exact same amount of that kilogram of gold. But if they digitize it, they turn it into stable coins, which then can be used off of that same system with MasterCard with the 1 equals 1. So a Circle or a Tether USD, $1 equals $1 that is used in that MasterCard system for that conversion, right? So it works for almost everything. Like the Bitcoin loans are the same. And these Bitcoin credit cards, you hold it in there, the price can appreciate or depreciate, but it's the same thing. Let's say you have 1 Bitcoin in there and you're pulling off a little bit each time. It's converted to USD Tether. And then that Tether goes off into the MasterCard account, which swaps for a 1-to-1 to pay off. So it's 2 different systems clearing somewhere in the middle right now. That's now. So they're going to be digitizing everything. And, how far can they take it, Ransom? Do you think of control once everything is, like I say, on the blockchain? It all has a value associated to it. They're giving these cards out where people can spend, but you're spending on the equity that's in your home or the total value. What happens when that total value runs out?
You're just what is it? Out of luck. I don't want to say the whole thing.
Or it'll be like one of those dystopian movie, you have to go off into the chamber, never to be seen again.
Well,
Something
you
like
could sell an organ, to re-up your worth or whatever. No, I think that's the obvious logical step to the way that they're ending inherited wealth is they're setting up systems where
that.
people can sell off their assets without transferring it to the next generation. And I hate to say it, it seems like after the Great Generation, the generations followed are a little more selfish and less planning ahead into the future or caring. That's why they had less children. That's why they stopped growing food. That's why, we'll just say moral things went crazy out there in the sphere of human behavior. Everything's accepted now, no matter how crazy it is. You don't know what's real. So they've been planning for this. It's just like a big conglomeration of a bunch of think tanks all coming together at the same time. And the key to that, obviously, in history has always been this idea of the food, controlling the food, where you get the food, what the food is, how much of it you need. I mean, think about how much of the garbage food from the store do you need to actually get enough proteins, vitamins, and nutrients in your body without being toxified by it. It's kind of like a give and take there, but you're taking more than you're getting. It's really crazy if you're not really growing your own food or don't. And it's really bad for people that live in the city, because when the food shuts off there, it's just over for them. They're the first to feel it. So like New York City could go the way of Chicago, where they try to open up these communist style city owned grocery stores that don't have food in it, because they tried that for 1 year. It failed. Obviously it was going to, when you have government in control of distribution of food and things. So that's a place we don't want to go. And by the way, once people start robbing everything from the stores, and you remember most of these states drop the number value, excuse me, they increase the number value that you have to steal for it to become a serious crime. So people can go into the store and steal $400 worth of groceries, and it's still no big deal. It's they don't even people are been doing that already without the food stamp thing. They've been just going in there and taking what they want. Over here at the dollar store, they don't even call the cops because it's just not even worth it. Like, they literally just don't call the cops, which tells the people, hey, I could just do it again, right? I'll do it again. They're not going to call the cops. And even if they do, I'm just going to get a misdemeanor. They'll let me out today. So they've kind of been conditioning people that they have a right to steal. They've been arguing about the human food is a human right. And the reason that never comes about as a human right is because, think about it. If you say food's a human right, then your next door neighbor that spent all year growing things and stocking their shelves full of emergency food, you just go in there and take it. And they'll be like, well, he didn't commit a crime. He just took some food. It's no big deal.
It's like you're trying to cut off his air, man. Can't make the guy not breathe in his front yard. How dare you?
I think it should be looked at like when, in my personal opinion, back in the Old West, when you stole someone's horse, that was considered a death sentence, that you just put that person to death. You took their livelihood, you took their transportation, their ability to work and get food. And I really think that, private theft of someone's home or anything like that should be treated in the same way. And of course, there are areas, you live in one of them, Florida's another one, and other places where you're probably not going to get in trouble if you protect yourself and your property and your worth and stuff. But in other places, they will prosecute you. You will be the criminal, and the other person will get out of jail first if you didn't kill them.
Yeah, that's the problem with that. You can go so far, but or part of a city or town or state, if the majority of the population's armed, it's a polite society. And everybody has, so everybody just respects everybody else. So you're not going to get too out of line, because eventually somebody's going to put and be like, you've stepped over the line. Like, there's certain moral behavior and codes that can't be stepped over. And, the citizenry is deciding that this is not going to fly anymore. There's people that will make that boundary at all times in these more rural communities because it's their towns. It's not like in a big city where you live in an apartment, you don't even know the person next to you. These people grew up with the same people. They went to high school with some of these kids. These people are 70, 80 years old, went to school together since like kindergarten, know everybody in the community, know everybody that's working at the food banks, knows everybody that's working at the supermarkets, all the churches, fire department, everything, police department, everybody knows everybody. And you think you're going to walk in there and like just people are going to just say, no, you have crossed over the line. And that, it will not happen in the cities, but it will out in the countryside for sure. So, Ransom, I was looking over here. Now, if you go to the Bank for International Settlements, you can find all this kind of information. They put it out you have to dig through the PDFs like I'm doing here. All the information of the future monetary system and the way it's going to transfer and move, and this kind of execution with smart contracts to make payments move from one to the other, like gold that have been digitized that turns into a tether that goes to MasterCard, and then you can buy a cup of coffee and it reduces the $2 off the amount of gold holding you had in that USDT. Well, this is the same thing here on the payment systems, the programmable environmental smart contracts in the environment. See, this is where they're going to get everything, what you can, what you cannot buy, how much you can buy, what your allowance is. They can plug in carbon tracking, carbon trading, carbon emissions on the purchases you make, also based on this, all running through AI. Well, you've exceeded I don't know if you saw the picture of the sandwich, but it was already 8.1% of a calorific carbon day that you would go over your allotment. It was 8.1% of your total allotment. They're already putting that on packages in the UK. That's crazy. And it was 8.1%, and it was just a sandwich, half a sandwich even. I'm thinking, whoa, that's not even going to be 2,000 calories a day. But again, people get real tired in camps and stuff. You can't think right. That's how they get controlled super easy. So the deposit contract on the bottom right here, that is what the thing is that gives it the value. So the central bank ledger, if we trace it back and we go bank A and bank B, that could be like Central Bank of England with the European Central Bank, or Central Bank of England and the Royal Indian Bank as well. So those are like countries' banks, Federal Reserve, that would be there too. All right, so they're going to be keeping a ledger of everything on the monies that are tethers, not the actual individual like item, but the money in USD tether and treasuries equivalent to that. It'll be itemized over on this next section here in the deposit contract. They need to deposit it because they need to put the gold into the contract to make it equal to the tethers. So that's the thing. You need to get that contract to deposit it into the smart chain, whatever chain you're using, to digitize the value of it, and then have a secondary holder that probably has a multi-sig wallet, which means it takes 2 or 3 or 4 people to validate and say, yes, that's true. And then that will unlock the contract. That's what that is, that deposit. And then the execution, again, whoever's going to be providing those funds to it, and that could be like MasterCard, supermarkets, Walmarts, whatever it is that you're going to use. If we're going to go totally digital, there will be a Walmart coin. I assure you there will be. So you see, this stuff is already in its containers and ready out of the sandbox to go play with. And, they show you how, in a very simplistic way, that this works. I mean, your account adjustment, that's going to be the blockchain that once a certain number of transactions validate that you did indeed swipe $2 for your coffee, that account adjustment will be there. Like all these things that's why they're using Tether and stellar lumens and things, And they're also going to be able to tell if your crypto was kind of wrapped up somewhere in a crime or something. So if you send one Bitcoin somewhere, they do the chain analytics on it and see where it all came from. Because if you give one Bitcoin, it might not be one, it'd be a smashing of a bunch of pieces together from yours if you had more than one. Or if you send a half, all the smashings together are the half. And they're going to chain analysis every single one of those shards or whatever that comes off. And if it's any way tainted, they're going to freeze your Bitcoin and put it into the smart contract address where you won't be able to use it anywhere on any platform. That's what's happening now. And who's writing the rules that says that Bitcoin or that Ethereum or that whatever was used in an illicit action and we're going to seize it? Again, that's what all this is in this programmable money here. They can make their own rules. Literally, they write their own rules in the smart contract. And there's a smart contract that probably has a clause that says it can be updated and totally replaced with another smart contract. You know, this whole tokenization thing is everywhere in our faces too. I'll go with one last one here. I know I'm boring everybody, but they call it tokenization continuum. I've heard this phrase used a couple of times before. The harder to tokenize things are going to be metal that's in the land that's not yet gone through a mining process that has a value in it. There's value there, but can you really get it out and put it in your hand? A kilogram of gold, I can put that in my hand immediately. So that's the difference between the blues and the reds, pretty much. Again, who's in charge of the legal frameworks in this that decides the smart contract execution and who gets paid, who gets swiped, who says illegal, who just got their thing frozen because it was connected to a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend way back in 2011, before you even knew 2012 that this thing even existed. And you had that little piece from a consolidation of others, and it's been through, and then bam, it comes in, and that one will flag you. And that's what they're working on here, to take away your cryptocurrency as well. Okay, I digress, Ransom. Sorry, man. Just jump back in. I'm rambling. Oh, he let me ramble by myself. I didn't even see. I was over trying to read that damn thing. But all I'm trying to say is it's everywhere. The information's out for you to see. It's not like a secret. Ransom and I are talking about. That was the Bank for International Settlements. There's like hundreds of those PDFs there. It's free. Go do some research. And thank you for the buy me a coffee, getting us a double espresso up there. Thank you. That was a long-winded answer, but
Right.
Thanks for the coffee. You see, you got me going. I'm like a double espresso.
No, you know,
Answer it.
I just really think that you know, it's hard to predict the future, obviously, and there's a lot of things in play out there, but it really seems like they're pulling the trigger to me, unlike years before where we thought, yeah, they're just getting ready to do it. They're getting ready to do it, and then they would kick the can a little bit. Things would back off. You would think that, you know, you'd see some stuff in the news that gave you some hope that, well, you know, maybe they're scrapping that idea. The Patriots are winning, or freedom is winning. But then, you know, 2 weeks later, it goes back the other way. And that's how they always do these things. Everything from the prices of things to politics to war, everything is incremental. It's always incremental until you just realize that that's the way it is. And here's one, like,
Let me make that widescreen, please. I'll flip you right back, but I wanted to do widescreen like that.
okay. So most of these are talking about
Oh, thanks for doing
the collapse of society, basically. I mean, why your beef, bananas, and coffee beans have gotten so expensive. When you get into it, it's funny because down here, the guy that's you know, talking
I disagree
about
with the numbers, though. I disagree with the percentages. It's way higher than that.
yeah, it is. It is higher than that. But even on their numbers, I mean, that's scary. And with this food guy expert, I forgot what his name is, Phil Limpert, food industry analysis and editor of Supermarket Guru, told CBS that, you know, the best thing we can do is hope for stabilization. Well, it doesn't seem like stabilization is coming too fast. And let's take just their numbers. They're talking about bananas going up 7%, beef going up 13%, and coffee going up 19%. And yeah, I believe those numbers are bigger. And then you look at what's going on around the world. We're getting in there. And remember, I want you to keep in mind that you brought up Brazil last week. So a bunch of stuff is popping up in Brazil all of a sudden the week after you were talking about, to probably include that in the whole destabilization area, Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil. Venezuela,
you're a competitor with the dollar. Come on now. You saw what they did with Saddam, and you saw what they did with Gaddafi, and you got another nation down there joining BRICS that's destabilizing and moving everything in over gold-backed issuance off. Come on, man. The history repeats itself.
Well, they're all going far left. They're all going far left down there.
They're far left. Yeah.
They're claiming that, you know, they got some CIA people. China's bragging everywhere in the world that, you know, they have basically the top of the line AI warfare and robotics. Even claiming in a couple of articles I saw that the United States is about 25 years behind in that arena. And then you got, you know, we're begging Argentina, which was close to collapse several times in a row here, that we're going to start buying their beef instead of buying our beef, which I think is a big runaround on how they grow and treat the beef, if you know what I mean. But this Argentinian beef here.
Yeah, because that, it is something that then that beef that we have gets exported out as well. Like China used to be a major buyer for like half hogs or quarter carcasses or something. But it's just interesting how Argentinian beef will get pumped into the US. The US beef will go over to Asia. And then, somewhere that should be a local producer be 4 times cheaper than it is now somehow doesn't happen at the local level.
Right. Well, what's important for that I think to pay attention to is if you look at South America, the West Coast is going pro-US, the East Coast of South America is going far left. So we're making deals with Peru, we're making deals with Argentina, Ecuador, like some of the ones in Central America, but then you have Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil. They're all going the exact opposite direction. And that's because everybody's taking sides in the upcoming war. And we're already seeing these little things like this hitting the headlines, which we knew was going to happen. Chinese nationals arrested in Georgia for attempting to buy black market uranium. I wonder what they were going to do with that.
And that was in Tbilisi, Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia, Tbilisi, like Republic of over between the Caspian and the Black Sea, that place, not Georgia, like Atlanta, different place. Sorry,
right,
not that scary.
right. Well, it is because it shows that the Chinese are operating all the way over in Eastern Europe pretty heavy there, and they're all into Ukraine. Not in Ukraine, excuse me, Russia on the Ukraine front. We have North Korean troops, so things are building up. And I wanted to bring this up. Here's our Halloween kind of portion story. So if you've been watching the headlines, you might realize that these places that we kind of predicted and joked about before are popping up all over the place, which sounds like Halloween stories, but what it amounts to is humans, the answer that you were talking about, what comes in the end. Well, it's that humans are the new commodity. And I mean, in the literal sense, like packaging up products. So recently in Arizona, they just busted what they called the chop shop for humans. They found thousands of people there, or traces of people, excuse me. I don't want to say thousands of people, but there was indication that a lot more traffic had gone through there. There was weird stuff like they were playing with the bodies. They were sewing little heads on big bodies, but it all amounted to a giant organ harvesting operation. So what they were doing is they were taking the recently dead, and God knows where they get some of the other people from, but they were hacking them up despite the family's wishes, selling their parts. It was a big business. Now, recently also in Juarez, Mexico, right across from El Paso, where we're at, there's a big debacle about a woman called La Diabla. And what she was doing is having people, cartel members and her own family, trick people with AI to get them at a certain place and kidnap pregnant. Right. So they would kidnap pregnant girls. They're selling the babies. They're selling the parts. They're selling the grown-up parts and the baby parts. But this is popping up everywhere. In China, if you haven't noticed, their concentration camps are dwindling. So
breaking up.
Breaking up? Really? I was talking about in China, their concentration camps are kind of dwindling down to smaller numbers. So they're going to need more. So I've seen articles about them cracking down on different religions there. So those people are going to camps and they're unwillingly becoming donors. And this is going to be something that you're going to see across the board. And if you remember, a bunch of people got busted in the Ukraine for doing the same thing. So and they're pumping out there. Think about the food shutting off and then the internet shutting off right afterwards. So, yeah, I think you're breaking up, David. I think it's you. So I saw you dancing around, catching up.
Yeah, I'm dancing, man. I saw that screen share open. It was bogging everything down.
So they want to scare you with the food, but what happens if the food or some kind of international event shuts off, and then of course the internet just shuts off because we're seeing hacking and different things, but not just that. Headlines,
EMP,
yeah,
solar flare, quarantine event. Doesn't really matter. You see, like they're taking you down this edge of already getting you ready for it. Now, imagine if you do turn it off, that'll turn us back into the literally like the 1300s AD. Would we kind of revert back to no internet, no, everything. You got to pipe your water in, you got to cook it. Eventually, the beds are not going to be good. You're going to have to, it's just going to get very dirty, very quick, and very, let's say, unsanitary. Even the things we know,
Plus,
it would still de-evolve really quickly.
Plus, you think you're going to miss out on the things going on in the grocery stores because, you're just going to order the food through Amazon or something
No,
like
they
that.
won't be able to computer order their supply in either. It goes all the way down.
Right.
Not as you can't order from the store, they can't order from their supplier, and their supplier in the regional district too, like US Foods or something like that. They're not. That's all. Everything's computer there. Nobody's
Right.
writing stuff. You're not.
So-
You're like 3 chains back still. You're like 3 steps back. That's going to be affected by the computer. And then those computers that also send orders out to the farmers on contract grow or like contract bid in and purchase on whatever's coming out of like California will have a lot of something that'll get bid in, but that'll be on a computer screen. It ain't a bird flying over there with a little note on its foot.
Well, I think part of this whole thing there's these plans going on. Now, I can't point to exactly the person and like blame them, but I see the trend. So you have basically 2 major ports that are controlled by one ideology. So that would be like New York, California, San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles. There's a lot of battle about who is going to be importing or taking care of the imports. Now, when you look to California as an indicator, it's about completely collapsed. It's what you're going to see on the East Coast as well, is a collapse of society where everything's closed up because people are just brazenly stealing everything and anything to get money. Here's one, like I can show you several articles.
So you think the East Coast is going to go down faster than the West Coast or Central Mississippi belt?
No, I think it'll be like a simultaneous thing because of the way trade routes work and people hoarding things once they find out that there's problems in the supply chain. You'll even have what we were talking about on a bigger scale where countries started doing that, and then you'll start seeing states doing that here in the United States, which will intensify the kind of left-right fake paradigm that they got going on to the public, where they just increasingly don't like people because they're from another state, because they think this, that, and the other thing are happening because of them, when really all of what's going on is at the corporate level and above. It's not the people on the street. It's not the people complaining or believe this or that. They really have no control over what's going on except for to play into the propaganda. So here's a couple of articles. Here's ones about, them stealing stuff right in broad daylight from the museum. They take 1,000 stuff. They take a giant statue away in broad daylight. The police aren't responding or can't respond or won't respond or don't want to respond.
What's the melt value of the statue?
Right.
That's all they're concerned about.
Right.
I can melt that thing down. I don't care. Turn it into a brick. It's worth something.
That's probably exactly what's going to happen to that thing, is they're going to cut it into pieces and melt it down for bronze or copper or whatever.
Yeah,
it's made out of.
That is very, very, very expensive now. It's going, it'll definitely be record prices for copper. Some dudes are talking like above $10 at the end of the year. I'm like, 10? That's insane. That's the base metal that'll be like a 3x on our base metals, like what the hell?
And it's funny because
copper ingots, man, that's the way to go. Investment, not investment advice. Copper
right.
ingots.
It's really funny because they were kind of all but encouraging people to tear down statues for a while for political reasons, but now it's for monetary motivations. And then here's, we were just talking about the shut off of the internet and how Amazon and all them, shut off for a little while when they got hacked or had a glitch or whatever excuse that they're using for it turning off. But simultaneously, they're talking about huge layoffs, because it's becoming more and more automated. They just don't need the people. They don't need the people in the meat packing plants. They don't need them in the Walmart distribution centers. They don't need them at the Amazon distribution centers. They don't even need it for the mail or other things. It's going to be reduced down to a few lucky people that have jobs. And then, like it just goes on and on. We joke about the AI being kind of in control of everything, and then it every once in a while it just slips out that is what's happening. They had this completely humiliating interview because the interview was written by AI, and we all know AI gets its facts and things wrong sometimes, so that stuck out. And then we got, for some more Halloween stuff, they are not going to pause ICE operations for Halloween, but that's okay because the witches are out trying to curse them so that, for Halloween or whatever. But
You
this
gotta
is the
think,
real
just showing
interesting.
the bizarreness of everything. Like, this is truly gonna be a wild Halloween. The
Right.
energy, you can feel the energy in the world change, and there's like a solar flare coming, so we're gonna get supercharged for this Halloween.
Right. And then what we see in actual logistics as far as government is they
Yeah, I
are
saw that
getting
one.
ready for something. Not only is the local police getting hyped up for what might happen, just like I demonstrated in my small city, that they've popped up all these cameras and they're waiting for some kind of event to happen, evidently, because all of a sudden they just decided they needed to put those everywhere one day. And now they're there. And what'll happen is people will get used to them because they see them every day. And then, before long, they won't care that they're there, and then they'll install permanent versions of those same temporary trailers and stuff. But in the background, you got
And we call
Pentagon
that a
ready.
military base under occupation, baby.
Right. So you got
Give me
all of
the
the
occupation. Oh, can't wait for that one. That's gonna be fun.
right. You
It's
got the
always
national.
worked out through history, always.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Um, all of
That's
the
what's scary about it.
major cities are getting an influx of National Guard troops. So the Pentagon is readying thousands more for, you know, the U.S. mission widens. And what is the U.S. mission? It's to try to keep some semblance of stability because all kinds of crazy stuff is happening. But what's really,
Wait, now,
eye
Ransom,
catching.
before you go on there, you got these 2 years to build all these camps up and, get all the housing and everything ready for permanent military occupation. We need it. We love it. We got 2 years to do it until the next party comes in and then utilize that same infrastructure against its enemies.
Right.
This happens all the time in history, and I can't believe that we're falling for it yet again.
Yeah. Well, we supposedly are, trying to stabilize, but there's another force that's
Stabilize
trying to
ourselves.
destabilize. And whenever you see like officials trying to move on to the military bases so that they'll have their own private security, that's a little concerning by itself. And then here's what I was bringing up in Brazil right before the COP30. They're cracking down on the crime down there so that they're, partners like China. And it reminds me of when Gavin Newsom cleaned up the streets finally and got all the poop off the streets and the trash off the streets and made the homeless people move for a week so that the Chinese, envoy could come over here and see thousands of Chinese flags down the streets of California as they went to their little meeting. Well, this is kind of similar, but it's much more brutal. Brazil police are accused of decapitating gangsters and displaying their heads. And their
Man, that's
crackdown.
old. That's old school, man. That is
Right.
old school Europe, dude. Put them right on the castle walls on the walk coming in down the road.
And here's another one. I've been seeing more and more of these articles about how Americans are trying to move into. And remember, there's the Get Out Gringo movement that is new, is only in the past couple years, which is also there's a version over in Italy and Spain also where they're trying to tell tourists get out of here, which doesn't, it's completely asinine because tourists are the people that bring the money to the little towns and villages all across southern Europe. But because there's an influx of a different kind of tourist that's moving in, they got these left movements telling the people come in, you need to get out, which is, crazy because they're the ones that are bringing the money. The other groups of tourists from south of them are not bringing money. They're only bringing need. They want and they want to take and they want to get. So that's not going to work out. But I've been seeing a bunch more of these articles about Americans trying to move to places in Latin America because their dollar still goes a lot further on certain things, especially food. Food is one of those number one things. So like I think I told you this before, on our last trip to Mexico, I got to do some price checking here and there when we went to Mexico City, clothing and shoes and all that stuff. As far as trying to look neat and cool with the trends and be like the American fashions and all of that, really crazy expensive. You can buy that cheaper here. I can go get a Nikes here cheaper than I can in Mexico City if I wanted those kind of shoes. But what you can't get here that you can get down there is feeding people on like $10. $15. You can feed a whole family and go out to a restaurant and be served delicious food for under what a steak costs here. I mean, literally, like one steak, one
Yeah, it's
ribeye, one
insane.
thing at the grocery store. You could feed a whole family and go out and eat at one of these taquerias or something like that down there. But I've been seeing more and more in that. And then here it
Ransom, we're
is.
coming
Get
up to
out.
the break time. If I
Oh, we'll save all this good
get
stuff for
out,
then.
well,
there.
let's come back to that article after the break here. I know I'm
All
yelling
right,
over Raymond. It is break time. I need a red button. Ransom, stop.
All right, let's go to break here. Sorry, got carried away with
Thank you
myself.
for joining us, Civilizations. When we come back, I definitely would love to get into that article and also some of the news to cover about what has happened over the last day or so, catching back up on the EBT shutdown. Remember, you'll need a passport and your driver's license to get a digital ID, but it's not good enough if you have a digital ID. If you're not good enough if you have a passport for your identification, because you need the digital ID. Remember that as we go into the break. Anyway, buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. Also check us out at civilizationcycle.com. We're going to take a break for a couple minutes. Please remember, every purchase you make from our sponsors helps us keep this message on air, bringing you information just like this. We'll see you in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts, Alfa Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
A huge challenge with our modern food system is that it's devoid of critical enzymes found in raw whole foods. Destroyed by poor agricultural practices, overprocessing, and cooking, our foods simply don't deliver the enzymes and nutrients our bodies need for optimized health. This imposes a much heavier burden on our bodies to replace the enzymes missing from our foods, depleting the enzyme potential of the body, weakening immune function, metabolism, and overall health. The good news? Patent-pending Ensorb addresses this problem head-on. Ensorb uses VNI's proprietary proteasome absorption technology to rapidly deliver the metabolically activated multi-enzyme complex directly into your blood. What can Ensorb do for you? How about unsurpassed, enhanced digestion of your foods, improved gastrointestinal function, improved immune function, strengthened metabolism for improved overall energy and vitality? And it does it all with its proprietary technology that can enhance bioavailability and absorption.
Head over to vni.life/civilization or click on that link in the description box below. Takes you directly to the Ensorb page. When was the last time you could trust your gut?
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Still tossing and turning, the modern world can really take a toll on your body's circadian rhythms, the internal clock. Hemp Lucid's Sleep Gummies use natural ingredients that are carefully balanced to help you drift off to sleep naturally and enjoy rejuvenating sleep all night long. all without habit-forming sedatives or melatonin. Curious about better sleep naturally? Check out these blueberry lemon sleep mushroom CBN gummies, reishi, lemon balm, valerian root, full spectrum hemp extract that may support a sense of calm. Ready for a better night's sleep? Click on that link in the description box below. Hemp Lucid Blueberry Lemon Sleep Gummies. And welcome back for the second hour right here, Mini Ice Age Conversations live show. It's the podcast live show. Ransom Godinwood joining me, as always, every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight, streaming from Rumble to any of your favorite platforms. Join us over on civilizationcycle.com and also buy me a coffee at Civilization Cycle. Now, as we went on the break last time, Ransom had a couple good articles wanted to dive back into. But, you know, I've been searching the news for all this food EBT madness that's been going on, and it might plague our nation here. Now, the reason I wanted to tell you that, well, I'm going to dive into an article or so. I guess maybe not. Let me see here. Thought I had the screen share up, but, you know, it's getting 11 p.m. on a Thursday. Here we go. Soul job. Can I read that again? Seoul warns youth jobless could threaten South Korea's survival. Now, it's not just us over here. If you're noticing that these phenomena are happening everywhere across the planet, we're just not the only one that has, you know, problems with either demographics or economy. I'm telling you, Japan's even worse off than Korea is for sure. And let me stop sharing that for you, Ransom. The first places that might look to be picked off are going to be Target, Walmart, Publix, CVS, Walgreens, and Kroger. As soon as they are, you shall be pick up only and prepay only. So if your credit card's already maxed out and you're not able to like purchase online, because imagine if the whole system switches to you have to use credit card. Like there's no other choice. There will be no cash because you can't prepay cash. So what happens with this? If it suddenly switches on a dime, imagine how much of a reset that would be just even for 5 days, 10 days. Because after this madness were to pass, I don't think they're going to reopen the stores like one day the next day. They're going to let this thing subside for a minute. Can you imagine the chaos of everybody having to use credit cards to order? That would create a whole different subset of what would be exposed out of credit card companies are charging like 30% interest, which is just loan sharking in itself. The amount of people that have their credit cards maxed out completely where they can't even buy one other thing. Like all that information will come to light too on how terrible it is. Like you're looking at the EBT scene, seeing all like the craziest things you've ever seen, but you're seeing some of the saddest things you've ever seen. But, you know, if it swings over this way to how people are being taken advantage of and like just ridiculous on the banks and everything, whatever happens, if you move to this credit card system, it's going to expose and rip off like a scab off of it, you know. It's going to be exposed again, just like the CBT scam thing is being exposed for a lot of it, for what it is. That there's, you know, look at it as a layer cake. There's certain layers that are just rotten to the core that need to be taken off. You know, it's the same thing. But as we move through this, food banks, the biggest need right now, canned vegetables. So if you are listening to our voice, thank you very much for your attention and this important conversation. If you are going to donate to food banks, or the thing they're in the need of the most right now, canned vegetables. So anybody listeners out there, you're going to run off and do something, help them out, please do. And as we, you know, Ransom had started somewhere about the bottom of the last hour, around 30 minutes ago, to be donating or adding in supplemental $13 million to food banks. West Virginia, they have 680,000 people on their EBT, and they're going to put in 13 million. Nevada is going to is going to put $6 million into inflation. I think they have 520,000 people on EBT. So that 6 million people gets divided amongst 500,000. That's like $12. Okay. But it's like this, these individual, and I'm curious, Ransom, where you're at, I'd cross there. How much were they going to put in? Because these stopgap measures are not going to work. If we do get over to completely 100%. Well, let me stop. 100% online credit card ordering. That is going to be circumstances equally as sticky as this. Equally as sticky. Ransom?
Supposedly in our state, they're adding 30 million for emergency funds. And from what I understand, they kind of borrowed that from other federal money that they already had for other things. So they're going to try to play up this us versus them thing. Despite them not really being any kind of a savior, they're just using money that was already taken by taxpayers already to give it back to them. And think about what are you going to get for $12? Nothing. Yeah, a cup of coffee, maybe 2 cups of coffee, a quarter of a beef cube. You're going to ration your family into little, quarter steaks. So you go buy one steak and everybody gets a little piece. No, it really is fitting into what we were talking about. And you brought up, again, California there with the stores closing with CVS and those kind of things. They already had a whole rash of closings because of theft. They already removed a bunch of them from the neighborhoods. And certain areas and think about this, starting in 2019, I remember telling you about the food deserts. That's why I brought that up earlier, that the food banks were already becoming empty. So the places that usually are the safety net for people to get extra food when they're not doing good, they've been empty for a long time. The homeless shelters have been having a hard time. The food banks have been empty. The little trucks that they were sending around at the beginning of COVID were like feed your family, where they would give like the neighborhood a hot dog and some French fries and a cookie and a milk for the poor. They hadn't even been coming around for the. Yeah, well, they haven't even been coming around either. And the reason is because they don't have the funding to do that, because it's all been used up. And we've kind of been getting there in this situation. And here's this
that headline you were looking for. I have a map of food stamps being which states are going to. Yeah, that was a crazy one too. Like, have you looked at any of these videos, you would be shocked at what you're seeing. I was talking to my sister. I was like, it can't be. No, there can't be people like this and running around in our society. Like one or two, but hundreds or whatever. That's crazy. Thousands. So let me show you this just to add into some more information if you're looking at that. So SNAP held by state government shutdown. All right. So the ones that are in dark red are states that verified. They do have some sort of emergency funds, like you Ransom mentioned there, but they'd already had that from some other tax generation event. It's in a pot somewhere. They're just going to siphon off and be like, yo, we're the saviors.
That's right.
But they're not. So those red state, those dark reds there that I showed.
It's the same map right here. This is the same map. It's those same locations. Yeah, it's the same locations because those are the areas with the highest amount of help from the government. And they're also the areas with the biggest cities with left-leaning people or governors of that state, depending on which one it is. And yes, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to try to use it as a tool to wedge society. And then the reason I was kind of showing this.
Hold on that map there, on the right side or on the east side of that, you got all the corridor all the way from New York down I-75, all the way down to New Orleans in that blue bubble area. That's a huge, huge main artery, like I-40, I-75 coming together, and then the I-75 north-south going all the way. That's huge, huge. And look at that that I-40 east-west is all those blue dots are the I-40 east coming in there, because it meets in Tennessee and Knoxville were those two. So draw it straight back to you in New Mexico. I bet I could find you and take 40 west and come out and see you, Ransom, driving straight from Tennessee straight out to New Mexico on 40 west.
Yeah, you'd have to take a left at Albuquerque.
All right, I'll do that
to get where I'm at. But yeah, if you look at these places, imagine the circles are not actually that big, but those are the areas. And you're right. So if you look at New Mexico,
all the transportation corridors of the biggest interstates in America are on and crosshaired on that map.
Right, they are. Like, so if you look at New Mexico, you see 4 circles. Those are going up I-25. If you look out at the East Coast from Boston, New York, all of that, that's I-95 that goes down to North Carolina, and it goes all the way to Florida. I think I forgot what interstate that is, like you said, that veers over through Georgia down to New Orleans. Is that 75? Yeah. I forget. All the 5s are up and down. But anyway, these are the corridors. And what they're going to do is tell people that, look at the other side. This is what they did. They're trying to starve you. It's trying to push this idea of civil unrest and civil war. The problem is every time they throw these things at the American people, either the American people are too smart, and that's why they don't fall for it, or they're too lazy because they just don't care. They don't get that hyped up. As long as the TV's on, as long as you got 101 cable channels and 31 flavors of ice cream, nobody's going to care. Right? Because life will keep rolling on. They'll keep getting this or that. But the idea that they've been pumping since about 2019, you notice that all of these ideas came around the same time, the summer of love, the COVID lockdowns. And you remember that they got people to get single file in line to go get tested at different places, to go get a swab of their nose. You think they won't get people to get single file line to pull in to get their food rations? From
Not even a fifth of an eighth of a second. Are you kidding me?
Well, everybody did it just to go get a swab in their nose. So I imagine they'll in it. But remember, that only really lasted the first year. It kind of fell apart the following year.
Yep.
People were, you know what? I'm done with this lockdown. I don't want to wear the thing on my face. And
everybody's still living. And this is like you're supposed to be dropping like logwood on the streets but everybody's like 99.999% of the people are still around after this thing. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
That's what I think is probably going to happen to this. There's going to be, and unfortunately, I don't want to be offensive, but a few low IQ people that are going to go out and really try to bum rush the store and steal a bunch of stuff, thinking that there's going to be no repercussions because there's this massive wave of internet crap telling them to do that. And they think that they're going to get away with it. But they're not.
50, what up?
They're just putting themselves on lists. That's all that they're doing. They're putting themselves. These are going to be the people that don't have a credit score later and will be complete wards of the state, taking a universal basic income because they have no other options anymore. There's no jobs. They've ruined their reputations. No one will hire them. If people know that's that lady that took those, that big cart of groceries out of there and was screaming and knocking stuff over at the store. You're not going to get a job.
National workforce is where you are destined.
And these people, a good percentage of, I'm going to say like half of the people that receive benefits don't need them. They just don't work, or they don't want to do anything that'll help them out. So there's going to be that part of, there's going to be about half of the people on help that are all of a sudden going to figure out that there was ways to make money if they just tried for a little while. So I don't really think this is going to be a big of an event as they think it is. However, it's going to set precedent for future events, for future lockdowns, for future ideas.
Go bamboo for a minute, man. Like, just read that headline there, Ransom. Just read that.
Yeah, and they're pushing people, get out there and ravish.
People to steal at will and infiltrate churches for cash. Like, what kind of demon is doing that? I don't care. Or did they say go to the mosque? And like, no, of course they didn't.
No.
You're
not going to go to that. You're not going to go to the synagogue or the mosque.
You're not going to the synagogue to steal anything, bro. Nothing. You do that, you don't come back from that. They don't take. There's no leeway at all. You're done. There's like zero chance. You got that one chance, and that's it. There's not a second chance. Ever.
I would bet you money that Catholic churches, mosques, and synagogues will not be touched. Pentecostal, whatever, like evangelical Christians, those type of
Buddhist temples and things.
The little churches, like the community churches, those kind of things, like the Baptist church, Protestant, whatever that you see all over town. Those are the ones that are going to get robbed. Those are also the ones that are in the neighborhoods of the most needy. So if they were going to rob churches, it would be that. And what would happen? They would just close down, which would cause kind of more of a moral domino effect where now there's another safety net that, disappeared that would have been there. But yeah, this is straight up people telling them.
The churches also are being stretched right now. That video I did earlier today, churches are stretched. This is my own notes. People are going from church to church looking for food, but churches are only offering 7 days of service per month. So if it's not a 24-hour, 7-day a week thing, they only offer, I even used a sign that says, we only do like service for this kind of thing 1 week a month. So people are already going from church to church to church looking for food as a backup and safety net versus the food banks, which are already out as well, which only ever can feed 15%, 1.5. So, I was looking through all the food banks and watched a ton of videos today, and only 1 out of 9 meals is provided by a food bank. The rest of it comes from EBT and SNAP. So if these people are going to go over to like the food banks and think that there's going to be enough food for everybody, it's going to be like these paper contracts with silver. There's 1 ounce of real physical silver for 300 ounces of paper contracts. It was going to be the same thing. There's only 1 meal provided by the food banks for 9 imaginary meals coming from EBT. Right? A lot of people don't know that. And the churches, they're probably at like a 1%. So 16% is being served out of 100% need. You tell me if there's going to be a problem.
I think there will be a problem in certain areas, and those are going to be in the major cities. And what's going to happen is like we've told you many times before, that grocery stores really only carry 3 days worth of food for a town, for not even for the whole town, but for their area of marketing. 3 days worth of food. So imagine if a bunch of people go into the store all at the same time and take weeks worth of food in their carts and steal it. So immediately that store will shut down to deal with the theft and deal with the anarchy and the chaos. So that 3 days of food is gone offline for several days. They may be getting shipments, but they're not going to be open to. And then you're going to see what we've already seen.
No
is
truck drivers are going to drive in a Dental Reggie, dude. No truck drivers are going to drive into this. What was that guy's name? Reginald Denny was the guy who got pulled out. Everybody learned that. You learn from that. Truckers learn from that. They're not going downtown where there's roadblocks.
You know that's weird, because I made a video.
Not.
Yeah, well, that's weird, because I made a video actually in 2020. The exact same thing happened as Reginald Denny, even with the red semi truck. That's what was weird about it. So the thing that happened in the 90s happened in 2020. The exact same, almost the same footage, the same thing. So, and that was actually my next point. We've seen a long history now for the past couple years of trains being robbed, of trucks being robbed. You think it was bad when times were decent. Imagine when people are knowing that they could make a lot of money off of stealing trucks worth of food or stopping them from getting to their destination. So there may be some problems. I just don't think it'll be so widespread that the entire country goes into a panic. I think more of that's going to be about, what's really going on out there. And I'm sure you've seen this. Just for our Halloween night. These are leaked photos from Groom Lake.
Looks so real. I'm scared, Ransom. These movie. I'm scared.
Yeah, what is that? It's some kind of chip or something. It's put up on a pedestal, so I don't know if this is some kind of artwork, and I don't know why that they would do it, or they're just trolling the public. But what it looks like is some kind of anti-gravitic device that they're, just leaking out to the public right now. And if you look at it, it's just like a big white pillar with what looks like a UFO on it. And that was leaked out. But what's really going on in the background, we're resuming nuclear testing. So I don't want to say nuclear and get everybody upset, being George Bush. But we're resuming that. And what you're seeing from the other groups is like Russia and China are saying, hey, well, if you're going to do it, we're going to do it. I thought we weren't going to do that. But if you've been watching China, they already were kind of bragging, that they're in the next age and that they equal the United States as far as nuclear technology. They're talking about their DF-61 or 60-1, which is basically a MIRV missile that they're bragging can go anywhere in under 20 minutes and take out the entire coast of America or all of Australia or whatever their target is. So what it is, it's supposed to be 60
that was clean on the mic, dude.
warheads, right? But one hydrogen bomb. Now, I don't know what the deal is by adding this one hydrogen bomb to it, unless it's some kind of reference to World War II about, the next time we do it, we're going to use the same weapon, but more. Just think about how that's kind of a weird, but they're really bragging about that. So they're saying if anything's fired at them or any kind of kinetic war starts where we're the aggressor, they're going to shoot this 60-1, this DF-61 up in the sky. It'll break into a bunch of little smaller nukes. It will take out an entire coast or both coasts at the same time. And then one big hydrogen bomb just to rub it in. So they're trying to scare the Skittles out of people, as Greg Greens over there says. They're trying to scare the Skittles out of people. And then why not just throw a big food shortage right there and say it's because of this conflict, that conflict, this outbreak, or an incoming object, because everybody's losing their mind at the same time as all this real world stuff is going on about some rock flying through the solar system, on whether or not it's going to be something, because it's popping out of the sun, I think, tomorrow, right? October 29th was the date, right? That's tonight. So it'll pop out, or no, that was yesterday, actually. So it should be popping out into view, and everybody's waiting to see if it's changed characteristics again.
The trends journal, the best investment you could make.
Yeah, so
because it's the best investment.
People are talking about bank runs, like you were saying there. I thought that was a free article, but anyway, others are talking about small bank runs on top of this. So think about all of these things that are culminating at the same time. Right. Like they are using this 3-eye atlas to talk about and put at least in a subset of the population that the Anunnaki are returning. It's a sentient craft. It's under intelligent control. It's an alien, whatever. It's traveling with all types of probes with it that could detach and come rolling toward our planet. We have several comets in the sky. Okay. But then at the same time, all these terrestrial events are happening at the same time. And they're talking about bank runs as well. So think about that for just a second. We got this whole madness going on. It seems like the entire planet is just literally off their rockers. I don't know if it's the magnetic field that declined, where our brains are no longer able to operate in the previous magnetic field that we were born into. Another slight variations and nuances as someone grows older from 0 to say 80, that the magnetic field had sort of in a polar wander fashion in previous ages gone at a much, much, much slower rate than it was. So somebody could live an entire lifetime, and that polar wander might have only gone 30 or 40 miles in their entire lifetime of drift from exactly on the magnetic north. But, our being born at our time, the pole has moved some 1,000 miles. And so what if it's starting to move even faster and we're getting a couple 100-mile per year clip off of that? Kids born now will be able to exist in that field better than we can. And you just have to wonder if some of the stories of old where people literally just lose their functionality, but others turn on, literally. Some turn off and some turn on based on magnetic field state. So I don't know. All these things are happening at the exact same time. The food shortages, the aliens are coming back, gold and silver are running. The economy, there's bank runs, could be nuclear war, the ships stop, this, that, the other. You know what I mean? It's like all this layering of the angst that they're trying to build in people is even beyond what it was for COVID, because COVID was all new. Nobody knew anything. Now they're just smashing everything on top like it's a layer cake of doom.
That's right, man. I mean, they're fighting back. I told you, the new market. This is this week's financial advice, evidently. I'm just kidding. It's not really. But, there's a big black market now of natural insemination. They just called that back in the 60s and 70s free love.
Where was that? Where was this thing when I was in university? Come on, man.
No, but this is becoming a real problem. People are having to actually face the facts that our species has a problem. And it's more than just a geographical or geopolitical problem. We're literally mutating into something different. And it's because of our actions, because of our environment, and also because of political different ideologies that have come up that are anti-human. So the whole idea of how humans go into the future is changing. And I've been seeing more and more articles that are coming around to the same idea, talking about what we've been talking about, is there seems to be a split going on where different species will come out at the end. And unfortunately, this might happen faster than people realize. Like within the next 50 years, there may be 3 or more different hominids, some by design, some are just a natural living man that's been here trying to make its way, and others will be part machine and part human. And we joke about these, like ectofirm and or whatever it's called, ectolabs, and the Chinese talking about growing fetuses and little robots that'll follow you around so you could take care of it. This is becoming more and more of a reality. So, and I was wondering what would be the real motivation to send all of the military age men out of a certain area on Earth. We've talked about this before. So either A, they know something major is coming and they're trying to do let's say that they're doing it for the greater good. We usually don't think that that's what it is, but let's say the world elite are trying to do the greater good. So they're moving populations that have, I don't know how I politely put this, genetic problems due to cultural reasons. So they have problems in those areas, up to 70% of their populations. So they're moving those people into an area that also has a problem too, and that's infertility. But they know the other group is fertile despite having genetic issues. If they move them in there, then maybe that's what it was. They were trying to solve it. On the other hand, if you look at it in a more sinister way, you're sending people that are probably not going to have great generations of people if they keep up their cultural beliefs in the new place that they go, which the trends are that they are doing that. So they're moving to new places and they're continuing to do the same type of marriage arrangements and things that they were doing where they came from, instead of mixing with the native population. And then the native population is going infertile, and there's becoming an increasing shattering effect or a balkanization of different tribes of people in Europe. So like last week I was pointing out, there's so many articles that just looks like the world elite have given up on Europe. Like it's gone, and they know that, and they're going to let whatever happens. However, if you bring in this idea of a draft in all of these countries, then it seems to make more sense. Where are you going to get all of these people that you need to get rid of because they're eaters? And then I just go back and I fall back on history. So I go back to like the British Isles. They were having real problems when they were competing with the other franchises, let's put it, corporate franchises like France and Spain and Portugal. Well, Portugal went out of favor real quick because they were the major slavers. So the other groups used that as a political reason to get them out of the waters. We know the British pretty much decimated what was left of the Portuguese fleet. They became a non-power. The Spanish were colonizing all over the Americas, so they kind of retained that power, but they were subject to the Vatican and kept loyalties to the Vatican. Then you have the French. They were having their own experiment over there, no kings, and they were already trying out that idea of rearranging society. But in the UK, they were having a big problem because they had bigger, increasing populations of Irish, Scottish, and Welsh that were becoming a real force against them. They were having skirmishes all the time. So somebody's bright idea was like, well, why don't we send them all off to the colonies, and then they won't be here to fight with, and then we'll fight with the ones that are left, and they'll reduce those numbers. And then, you know what? We'll just have another big war over in the colonies to go ahead and reduce their population down a little bit. So England solved their overpopulation problem in the past by moving military age men out somewhere else to invade a new land, right? Well, now there's no more lands to invade. There's no more places to go. So now they're using the same tactics on destabilization. So over here in the northern, they sent a bunch of military age men up here, but we changed the draft. So we may kick out the most violent or unwanted or whatever people out, but there's going to be tens of millions of people that remain, and most of them are between the ages of 18 and 26 years old and are military age men. So if we get in a world conflict, Europe has solved their soldier problem. All they have to do is recruit all the people that are now guests in their nation. And the United States can do the exact same thing. But then you have what you were bringing up over
I digress,
overseas.
Ransom.
You have this
I just don't agree.
population of young people. Well, you got different stuff going on in different places. Like
If you
Asia,
think
you were
if they're
bringing up
causing
the unruly youth.
Well, if you think they're this unruly already over food stamps and EBT, at least a segment of that, do you think those same segment that are going to get drafted are going to be like, yes, sir, I'm going to go march into war for you? They're going to be like, hell no.
If they
There's
want to
going to be a
eat,
very significant percent of that population that you think would get drafted and be that segment you're talking about, but they're going to be like, hell no. Or they would click in themselves inside their own weapons and like take over units and stuff. Like, you really think
They
they're
could
just
do
going to
that.
marching off and be like, complete loyalty to you, dude?
I don't think they'll have much of a choice. Drafts have always gone pretty well for major powers. Just think about the Germans, the Americans, Japanese, everybody, Chinese. They've always done well with drafts, mandatory service. But think about this: if there's food problems and people are hungry, there is an option. You can go to the military and you can eat. So there is because that happens now. They go to poor
True.
areas, and that's where they recruit the Marine Corps. Like, if you have ever gone into a major city, if you go into the poor areas, they usually have a recruitment center there with the Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, and the Marine Corps. And then right next to that will be a Jenny Craig, thing for the other people. But no, they've never really had a problem with forcing people to go to war throughout history. So I don't think that'll be a problem. And one of the major incentives is to eat. Well, until you're in war, then all of a sudden you can't eat.
And if they could assure that their families would eat also, but if their families were assured of eating, that allegiance, that loyalty would be deeper, especially in a crisis of food.
Yeah, well, think of
growing longer all over America. That's the problem. They're not going to be able to use food banks to supplement the BBTs. Now, the only next step, logic, is for them to actually start to go to homes to bring food.
Yeah, and I also wanted to bring up this balkanization thing. In some of these countries, despite their ideological beliefs, sometimes it backfires on them. This is one about a German mayor that was tortured for hours in a basement by her own adopted daughter from overseas. She thought she was the evil establishment there, despite and there's millions of these cases where people decided that they wanted to get along with the new population. However, the new population didn't see it their way. Matter of fact, there's a famous woman that was advocating migration into Europe, and she ended up getting beheaded, by the people she was supporting there. But don't worry, we're just going to make a big tunnel under the ocean between Russia and Alaska, and we're going to become allies when both Russia and the United States, in the end, go to war with China. What happened there? Did you freeze? No. I kind of think that in the end, that's what's going to play out. Right now it looks like Russia and China are buddies, but I have a feeling that in the near future, Russia will flip sides to be more adversarial towards China, because China's goals most likely will be that to take over Russia. That's where all those natural resources are out there that are untapped all through the Siberian area. No one lives there. No one's tapping it. There you are.
Yet, but imagine if they knew where the moved to, and then different graphically that would be more conducive for, let's say, these corporations to kick themselves back into gear again, harvesting resources and starting the economy more.
Here's one idea. Most people don't realize that a lot of trade and stuff comes in on air traffic. So imagine what happens if we have this continued government shutdown and they just shut down air traffic at the same time as the food stops. So there may be, maybe I'm wrong, and there might be more of something going to happen here with people going crazy. We've seen it in other places. Like, I always bring up the French Revolution as one of those times and places. So once the mob gets together, they start acting crazy and they pump each other up and they fill each other full of ideas. And we've already had several summer of love, so we might just have a winter of love this time. Let's check in on the chat. They saw the comment this week.
Here we go. I was trying to close down the thing. I had my still some movie maker open, and my thing's bogging down because I got too many windows open right now. Yeah, those guys that'll have a lot of windows open. Yeah, you're both describing the pre-introduction, the Antichrist beast system. Everything we see in America is the steering of minds. Now, what do we have over at buymeacoffee.com/civilization there, Ransom? Let's check that out as well. Taco Banana in Iowa today, went down to the 1200 population DMV office, asked if they could remove my real ID. Well, that's an interesting one. I was thinking of doing something very similar to that. And, they were like, well, it's going to, just not the DMV themselves, but some close acquaintances were like, why would you do that? It's going to be. So he went down to just get a regular ID. The older lady behind the counter came over and got very angry and asked, why? Why do you want to get this ID taken away? And he said, Taco Banana says, because I think it will be used against us later. She said, that's fake news. It only affects flights. Get your ID and don't ask questions and don't get off the system. She didn't know what a CBDC or a stable coin is. And then without me really responding, she went to the back of the office, got a younger girl to come up and help. We made an appointment to get it removed. And then after all that appointment making, it was done. The girl said that no one has ever asked this before, and they aren't sure if they can actually undo it. I finally said, sorry for making Karen so mad. And I was leaving, and the older lady yelled out a rude remark as you were cruising out the door. So thank you for that. I don't know what to say. Can you get the thing? What do you think, Ransom? Can you get this? You think you can get this removed off of your license, like remove the yellow star or whatever? I have a yellow star on mine. Can I get it removed?
I don't think so, man. They've been building lists since 2001. And, everybody kept talking about, hey, what are they doing with all this information? What's the NSA doing? Well, we're starting to see what they were going to do. It's to build literally like what they're talking about, a beast system. And somebody put this here. Ransom. No, that's the wrong one.
No, that's it. Inbreeding. Yeah. So the genetic damage. So I'm wondering, like, if you had a genetically damaged African that rolled up and got in a relationship with a European, say, Danish girl or Swedish girl, and they had children, would that sort of smooth itself out and reduce one level or two levels back again, the reduction of that cousin marriage thing?
Yes. I think after a couple generations,
for those who
that
are
would
interested.
Fix. But I don't think it'll fix whenever the women, let's say in the UK, France, Italy, or one of those places that have fertility problems, it's not the same scenario there. The Swedish and all of them up there are having less of those problems for some reason. I don't know why. But here's another question. Ransom, how are you going to get those people to get drafted? Well, if you've been watching what's going on in the Ukraine, they just send a bunch of guys that are armed to your house and they beat the crap out of you and they drag you off in a van if you say no. And imagine what the U.S. military does. They'll send police over, which are trigger happy. So if you fight them, you might not make it to being drafted. That's true. But if you cooperate, they're just going to hand you over to military, or the military will do it themselves. We don't have a draft instituted. What I was referring to is that they recently reworded it. So if they do institute the draft, anybody in the United States, regardless of citizenship, between the 18 and 26, and probably it'll be gender neutral. Also, the wordage is gender neutral, right? It just says people from the age of 18 to 26. They're subject to being drafted, and that's exactly what they'll do to them. We see it going on in Ukraine. They ran out of people basically to draft, so they're just getting anybody they can, and they've had people as young as 15 fighting, as old as 60 plus out on the front lines. Foreigners that get stuck in Ukraine, guess what happens to them? They go to the front lines. Guess what happens if you're on the Russian side? If you're a criminal or you're an illegal immigrant, they put you on the front lines. That's what's going to happen. Hopefully, it doesn't get
sounds
that.
fun. They bring the picnic basket, dude. Hey, now just a factoid out there: Ukraine is 1/8 the size of the United States, approximately. So if you have 8 Ukraines and you stack them all over, it's approximately the size of the lower 48. 8 of those. So if they're able to mobilize and get through and go and get that many people, well over 1.5 million people have been mobilized already by teams running around in those said vans. Like, how long would it take before the entire U.S. could be as well by those teams going around in vans? 1/8 the size of the lower 48. So how long do you think it would really take? Like, there'd be endless people they could go up and grab, whether supermarket shopping or whatever.
That's one I kind of think is funny. They said
the ghetto's going to resist. Hey, dude, we love Ransom.
No, they're not going to resist me. They're trying to point out that they think in the ghettos they'll resist. Well, they might.
I know. I was just making a joke of that.
But look what
come on, dude.
Look what happens when people get SWAT teamed in the ghetto. Does the whole neighborhood come out and help them? No. Even all of those little, you see the TikToks and the whatever with the kids with the one clip and they got a gun. Everybody's got a gun. You know what they don't have? More than a one incident worth of ammo. In other words, once they've spent their wad, that's it. So I don't think they're going to have a problem with that.
And they don't have any long barrels either.
No, some of them do, like up and around Chicago. But I really don't think that'll be a problem.
Those are inaccurate. I give those boys about 100 yards out there, and then anything past 100, they're shooting blind.
Well, not to mention that's a small minority of a minority that's even armed like that. The majority of the people in the ghetto, they're not, going around flexing their guns. They might have one in their house. But no, I don't think that's going to be a problem at all because we've already had those kind of things happen. In World War II, they went into neighborhoods with completely armed people. Almost everybody was armed. You know what they did? They went. But that was more of a patriotic time. I don't think they're going to do anything, but I think the max of what you'll see the ghetto going to do is going to be towards Walmart here in the next month, and that'll be that. I just don't see it.
Yeah,
they don't have stockpiles of ammo.
This all leads. Yeah, if you go in, we're going to try to get the shotguns and the ammo out of there. So maybe that's why it's always so sparse when you go in there. But this is leading, all roads are leading to Rome here. This is one direction we're going, all the way down to online ordering only. Online order. So this is where it's going. This particular set of events we're looking at is going to take us into that era where you are no longer going into a store physically.
And I also wanted to point out, if you guys have not forgot, during the Obama administration, most of the militias across the United States, matter of fact, twice that happened. If you go back to after the Oklahoma City bombing, Bill Clinton used, what was his name? I forgot the guy's name. Eric Holder at the time, and FEMA, and they didn't have the Department of Homeland Security then, but they used the federal government, the ATF, the DEA, and the FBI to go around to the militias and confiscate all of their stockpiles of ammunition. Then what followed? You get to Obama administration, and you remember the big ammo shortage because the federal government was buying up all the 40 cal, 223, 5.56, and they were arming departments of the government that don't need to be armed. And you wouldn't wonder, like, nobody wondered this, why there was a bunch of school shootings in the decade following whenever they armed the Department of Education with AR-15s and 40 cals, and they bought up all that ammo, and the Department of Interior got a bunch of ammo. People forget about that. The government stockpiled enough to have a 7-year war with its own people, if you remember. I do.
Unfortunately, I do too. And that's, you wonder where all that ammo is now today. At that time, they were saying because, again, we need these people that are working in our government offices and repositories, warehouses, libraries, etc., that run the government or have the information there need to protect themselves, all the way down to armed IRS agents and everything in between. So where did all this ammo go to is the question, because you're telling me Department of Agriculture needs like 2 billion rounds. Like, they're not hunting that many rabbits, you know what I mean? Like, and it's all 9mm, and a lot of that shotgun 9mm, 5.56, like anywhere that it's running around. And another thing, Ransom, did I send you that article where they were talking about flipping down the back of the truck with sandbags and things?
Let's see here.
I don't know if I sent you that. It was a read, but to continue on to that, most of those guys with hardware down, if they're going to block off roads and do something like we'd seen during different rioting events through the 90s and just more recently, most of those guys are, if they do have the hardware, long barrels, it's usually like AK-47, and everything else is handguns, shotguns. Right. The range of that is very limited. And if they do have something with a scope on it, it's probably not been sighted in at a proper range.
And they haven't been trained.
Yeah, right. They're not range trained, or like they don't go hunting, and they're not trying to pick something off at 300 yards. But almost everybody else that's not in that environment that really uses those for hunting and thing, you got 300 to 400 yard advantage on that farthest reach point from those guys, you know.
And besides, look at this little skirmishes with the wannabe resistors of the government that we've seen. It's all acting. It looks like central casting.
Totally.
Like
Yeah, like where did they sign up
Antifa,
for
BLM.
audition?
And look what happens when they start getting pegged with like rubber bullets. They disperse.
They
Imagine what
always
happens.
do.
There's
I'm
2 or
surprised they
3
didn't
dead
use any
people laying
sonic
in the
weapons
street.
on those rat bastards.
I don't really see any kind of resistance, because I think the majority of Americans will snuff that out before the government did.
Yeah, but again, would you be labeled as some sort of extrajudicial killer at the time, you know? You're
Well,
not
yeah,
caring.
depends on what happens afterwards and what people are in government after that. That's true. You gotta realize we're in an era where the government tried to convince you that a bunch of people with flags and phones tried to do an insurrection to overthrow the government. I saw a comedian recently, and he was joking about that. I think it was like Jimmy Dorn. I think it was. We watched his stand up, which is free on YouTube. And he was joking about that. He was like, wow, you telling me that all the Second Amendment nuts came to Washington, D.C. to throw in an insurrection? And when they got there, they're like, hey, Bob, did you bring the guns? Ah, I knew I forgot something. No, that didn't happen. Obviously, that wasn't an insurrection.
I have the I got my I got my selfie stick and like a stabilizer, right? I got a gimbal. Yeah.
And right, and besides that, the kind of investigation, the little bit of investigation that they put into what that was and what happened, turned out to be like 250 undercover federal agents, about 300 people known from Antifa. And when you go back through the pictures, guess who's breaking the windows and opening the doors? It's almost all Antifa and federal officers doing that. The people that were walking there, like, I hate to say it, zombies. And not to offend the MAGA people, but they were like zombies that came into or moths to the flame. They got brought right in there. It was a trick. And think about what the whole reason why they all had red hats and the whole uniform. I knew that was going to be a bad idea from the beginning. All that did is allow the powers that be to realize who is who and who is going to do what and what side of the political ideas they're going to support or not support. So right away, half the conservatives gave their public identities up. Imagine why that didn't really happen in the past. It's because, when I was growing up as a kid, I would ask my grandpa, hey, who'd you vote for? And he would immediately say, hey, shut up. That's rude. That's none of your business. That's rude. You don't ask people their politics. You don't ask them who they voted for. And nowadays, people are wearing it on their sleeves. They're bragging about it. It was so easy to divide and conquer the population with this tribalism idea where you wear a uniform. And that's the psychological experiment, right? When you put prisoners in a building and they're all volunteers at first, but then you give half the group uniforms and you give the other half different kind of uniforms, all of a sudden people start changing their behavior. Well, they tried to do that to the public. Thank God they didn't really fall for it. But they're going to try it again with this shutdown of government. This is just another one of those things to try to divide people into two separate camps and to do stupid things, which who comes out on top? The government. They gain more powers. Every time people fall for these things, they enact new rules, new regulations, and then the scared plebeians go, you know what? Maybe it is a good idea that there's a facial recognition reader on every block in my neighborhood now. Maybe it is a good idea that I can order online and go pick up my stuff, and I don't go in the grocery store, and I don't have to stand 6 feet next to someone, I don't know. I'm just saying.
They're just changing the uniforms this time. So the policemen and the nurses and doctors, all those like respected uniforms, they worked to a point during COVID. Now nobody respects those uniforms and thinking that they have a completely different connotation to them visually. And what you used to give those people some respect, it's just totally changed after COVID, like completely changed. Now they're going to substitute the uniforms of compliance with military fatigues. And you got to think about that. Just what you said, Ransom, like, those federal agents that enticed everybody in the federal building there. Imagine if it's just one federal agent enticing and trying to stop a cart of food coming out to get other people to like, hey, I need some help. You got to stop. And they pull people in, but they're at individual stores doing that by the thousands like they would be with federal agents. I don't know so much under the Trump administration here, but if it were Biden, it would not, or Obama, it would not surprise me at all that there would be one federal agent in each store trying to cause a ruckus to draw others, like you say, the moth to the flame of law-abiding citizens that think they were doing something good, and then entrapping them that way. I'm going to say, you know, if you get into the ruckus and try to stop carts coming out and you're out in the park, that's on you, man. Don't be asking for help if you're trying to play like, you know, John Wayne's Lone Ranger out here to stop every thief that's coming out with a cart of food. Do you be there all day long trying to stop people? Now, you know, would it be one of those setup things? Because I am absolutely sure future the arm of first stand-uppers is going to be taken out of society because, well, they would be the first to resist.
Well, you know, there's one other problem. A lot of people worry about the poor or, you know, people that don't mind committing crimes. And it is true, they are a big threat to civilized society. However, there's another threat that people don't usually recognize, and that's government worshipers. You could go online right now and find thousands of videos of local police officers violating the law, violating people's rights. And there's no protests for these people that get done bad like that. But one thing that's a real common factor in these is that even if the police officer is doing obviously something illegal and wrong, bystanders will come out and help the police officer do it. They'll help assault the person. They'll help detain the person. They don't know what's going on, but they'll help do it. So those people are a real danger too, because if you get into a martial law scenario, those same people will be, just like you said, out there trying to be, you know, Captain America with their AR-15, stopping somebody with a cart of groceries. And that kind of thing just escalates this divide between people. You don't really need that either. Let law enforcement do what law enforcement does. And that way, if they make boo-boos, they're the ones responsible for it, not you, because you don't have immunity, qualified immunity. What you have is vulnerability to, you know, be charged with crimes or sued civilly. So it's not a good idea to be on that far of the opposite end of things either. I'm not saying let people steal from your house, because that's a totally different
That's way
scenario.
different. That's way different. If they're coming out and robbing your car and you're trying to get out of there and they're doing that's completely different. You absolutely err on the side of caution of defense first and then ask a question later. But if you're in a store going, you can't steal that box of Twinkies, you freeloader, you know, you're just asking for trouble. It's the corporate, it's their environment. It's their corporate insured environment. Who cares if something gets stolen out of there? If it comes out and it attempts to your bodily harm, that's totally different. And like you're trying to get away and they try to block your cars in or something, that's way different at that point, you know.
Right.
Way
Here,
different.
this is a good one. He says,
Yeah, I remember the Bugs Bunny cartoon. Okay,
yeah.
go.
Remember the Bugs Bunny cartoon where the wind would blow their different hats on and then they would just start behaving like the new hat? I do remember that. That's funny.
I don't remember that, but I remember a tremendous amount of Bugs Bunnies because that was funny. The Roadrunner and Acme Company and all that stuff. That was like good comedy, you know?
It was. And think
But they're
about this.
programming you, Acme. Everything's coming from Acme. They were giving you like 50 years in the future, like boxes falling off of cliffs into your house. Well, that's the new drone delivery, but they were just ahead of their time by like 70 years.
You know, and it's really weird because nowadays you have, I would say, morally corrupt ideas on television. But if you go back to like even Bugs Bunny would dress as a woman once in a while. So did Yosemite Sam. All of them. They would cross dress for comedy.
True.
For comedy reasons, because it was asinine. So that made it funny. But now it's just like, man, if you go on any of the live streaming anything, I've been watching stuff that's just next level horror show, and it's almost all about the surveillance state and what they can do with that. Did you watch that new
right
movie?
Up nightmares. Like Halloween is tomorrow. Remember tonight is I forget the name of it. But if it places around like Detroit, this is where they set all the houses on fire tonight, right? This is this night, not Halloween night, this night tonight.
Yeah, this is All Hallows Eve here.
Yeah, right. And please remember, this may or may not go down. If you hear on Saturday morning that they haven't passed any of this resolution to get EBT and SNAP refunded, or SNAP first and then EBT loaded into the cards, you might want to be a little more cautious moving around on Saturday and Sunday. That's all I'll leave it there with. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Remember, civilizationcycle.com. Drop your email down there. Get to the show notes just like I did before tonight's episode. About 4,500 people on our list so far, taking the, you know, it's just a bullet point of 10 different things that we talked about, or 8, however many look interesting. So you can have that conversation with somebody else. Start the conversation. Print it off. Have search notes. Right there it is. Scan that
Right.
QR code or go to civilizationcycle.com. Just scroll down past the podcast player and you'll find a place where you can enter your email right there. Also, buymeacoffee.com/civilization if you want to support us that way. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Hopefully you got something out of the show tonight. Ransom, anything else? Take us out.
I was just going to say this one last thought. I put on the Civilization chat room there a link to a preview of this movie that's on Netflix called House of Dynamite. Now, watch that movie and realize what kind of real surveillance state. But not only that, they point out the failures, which are realistic failures that would happen during a nuclear standoff or something like that. It's a really good movie as far as that goes. It really doesn't go anywhere. It's just the same 20 minutes by a bunch of different people's point of view. But it is a pretty scary movie, and it's weird that they're pumping that out. The movie's about a rogue missile out of the Pacific Ocean, which really lines up with real events because the White House is saying they're going to be concentrated on the Pacific and the Western Hemisphere from now on. That's all I got. I think that's it.